Ducati is a brand that doesn't make boring commuter bikes. Every single machine is designed to deliver the sheer joy of riding, and the engine is a huge part of that. Previously, the legendary L-twin unit was the core of Ducati's lineup for 50 years, but the baton was passed on to the next generation of engines. The V4 was a reasonable choice. It was built to sound like a V-twin, made to help with leaning, and simply is the state-of-art engine. The famous L-twin engine, as Ducati likes to call it, was designed by the brilliant Italian engineer Fabio Taglioni in the 1970s. Taglioni had designed various state-of-the-art engines for Ducati, and the victories of the Ducati 750 Imola Desmo helped define the brand's racing approach for the next few decades. The L-twin engine has a 90-degree bang angle, a single crankshaft lane, and can rev up to 12,000 rpm. The 205 horsepower Panigale R represents the peak engineering of the L-twin engine. Today, the Panigale V2 continues with the original twin-cylinder desmodromic design, but the flagship model required a more competitive architecture to build upon. Something more efficient that would allow for higher revs and lower piston weight in order to deliver unmatched performance. Ducati enjoys teasing the public, as they did in the early 2000s with the introduction of a new MotoGP engine. Claudio Domenicali, the managing director of Ducati Corse, used the words twin pulse and double twin before the reveal. In the preliminary study phase, we considered a twin-cylinder oval piston engine to be an excellent layout for the new regulations, but further analysis led us to decide that the best solution was a double twin. Naturally, they first considered a twin-cylinder engine, but it was found that it would need to turn at least 17,000 rpm to keep up, at a cost of questionable reliability. As a result, a 4-cylinder engine was the logical choice. This is when Ducati dusted down the idea of a V4 engine. That's right, Ducati actually built a V4 engine back in the 1964 for a prototype called the Ducati Apollo. It was designed to win a police contract in the US and to rival Harley-Davidson on the market. The Harley had 55 horsepower at the time, while the 1.3-liter Apollo, also developed by Fabio Taglioni, produced nearly double that. However, the project eventually failed due to tire technology that was not on par with the 100 horsepower output, and massive detuning was required for tire longevity. Only one of the two prototypes made still exists, and now could be considered a spiritual predecessor to the Diavel V4. As the company had already gathered experience and knowledge from the GP V4 racing project, which had been ongoing for over 20 years, no other engine concept seemed more reasonable for the new Panigale than the V4. The development began in 2015, and the finished product was launched in 2018, featuring a 1103cc displacement. While a straight 4 engine has various advantages, using the V4 allowed Ducati to incorporate more of the brand's DNA into a single power plant. It also allowed for a sleeker motorcycle, and with the engine rotated backwards by 42 degrees, better mass centralization could be achieved. The interesting thing is that the 1964 Apollo V4 had over-squared cylinders of 84.5 by 56 mm, which is incredibly similar to the current V4 of 83 by 53.5 mm. The V4 engine also accepts a wider range of firing orders, which Ducati naturally tested prior to the launch. Even a Screamer firing order was tried, but the Twin Pulse firing order, which has been used on GP bikes and the production Desmo Sedici RR ever since, was ultimately chosen. It fits Ducati perfectly and definitely sounds unlike any other V4. With the 70-degree offset crankshaft, the engine is constructed to reproduce the firing sequence of a twin-cylinder engine. In fact, the engine first fires the left-hand side cylinders and then later the right-hand ones, mimicking two L-twin engines firing just 200 degrees after each other. This creates a very distinct soundtrack for the Twin Pulse V4. The firings at 0, 90, 290 and 380 degrees create a different kind of Big Bang firing order that helps with the traction feeling from the tire when exiting curves. It was meticulously tested to suit both extreme use cases, such as the track use of the Panigale and demanding off-road driving of the Multistrada. While the firing sequence may be interesting, there are other cool features on the new engine. These include ride-by-wire technology, twin injectors per cylinder, and a high compression ratio of 14:1, which is very rare in the automotive industry for a gasoline engine. The Stradale V4 engine used for the Panigale and Street Fighter models also retains the desmodromic valve technology, which is obsolete but fascinating with the small opening and large closing cam lobes. It is a chain-driven system with aluminum gravity die-cast heads, and the engine has 4 oil pumps, including 3 return pumps for superior lubrication. A cherry on the cake is the variable Integranos with 52mm throttle body. The Granturismo engine, which is meant for touring bikes such as the Multistrada and Diavel, does have 3 oil pumps, and the valve train features conventional valve springs. The desmodromic valve makes sense for higher-end motorcycles, but the decision to ditch the system for the Granturismo was simple. Applying the same production technologies and materials allowed for much longer service intervals of 60,000 kilometers. The Granturismo has smaller ITBs of 46mm and a lower oil pan design, but overall they are both very similar in size and weight, and even the torque figure is pretty much the same. The crankshaft stroke is identical, and there is only a 2mm bore difference in favor of the Granturismo, gaining an additional 55cc. The specialty of the Ducati V4 is a counter-rotating crankshaft, spinning in the opposite direction of the wheels to compensate for the gyroscopic effect of the wheels, making the bike eager to turn, a feature that even modern bikes usually do not have, but is a standard feature in MotoGP. Interestingly, the V4 is negligibly lighter than the outgoing twin by a kilo or 2, and is also a bit more compact in dimensions. The Multistrada is rated at 170 horsepower, while the standard output of the Panigale V4 is 214 horsepower. The 1000cc Superleggera, meant for the Panigale V4 R, is even more extreme, but it's tough to decide what's more fascinating about it. The 234 horsepower output with the Akrapovic exhaust system, or the amazing 16,500 rev range. As always, I'm very glad you stopped by and decided to watch this video. Thank you very much for watching, and please consider subscribing to my Patreon page. Thanks again, and see you in the next one. Cheers!